They thought they had the perfect target. March 22nd, 2025. Red Sea airspace. Crystal clear visibility. My F-16 Fighting Falcon cruising at Angels 30 on what looked like routine patrol. Standard flight path. Nothing suspicious. Then ping. Missile lock warning screams in my headset. Threat display lights up like Christmas. SAM launch detected. Brake left. Brake left. I slammed the stick hard port. My Falcon rolls violent. Flares popping hot. Chaff blooming behind me. An advanced surface-to-air missile just launched from Houthi territory below. Fast. Deadly. Meant to kill. But here's what they didn't know. This wasn't routine patrol. This was payback. Exactly 367 days ago, they murdered my wingman Torch right here in these same coordinates. Same missile system. Same crew. While I'm dodging death at 9 GS, USS Nimitz Strike Group is watching from over the horizon. Every radar signature recorded. Every launch position marked. The missile adjusts trajectory, tracking my heat signature. 20 seconds to impact. I pull another crushing turn. Aircraft screaming under the stress. Final flare deploys brilliant white. Boom. Missile detonates wide. I'm alive. But now they reveal themselves. Because this wasn't a dogfight. This was bait. And they just took it. If you want to see how this deadly game of cat and mouse unfolds, and witness the devastating response when you mess with a wrong US fighter pilot, make sure to smash that like button right now. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think Ghost should do next. Would you have made the same choice for revenge? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our intense military stories that dive deep into the real battles happening around the world. Your support helps us bring you more incredible true stories of courage, brotherhood, and justice. Like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell. Because these stories of American heroes deserve to be heard. The Red Sea stretches beneath me like molten copper in the dying light. Its surface broken only by the occasional whitecap that catches the last rays of sun filtering through my cockpit. My F-16 cuts through the thin air at 30,000 feet, the Pratt & Whitney engine humming with a familiar reliability that's become as comforting as a heartbeat. But comfort isn't what I'm after today. Today, I'm hunting ghosts, and one ghost in particular has been haunting me for exactly 367 days. The radio crackles in my headset as control checks in for the third time in 20 minutes. Ghost Rider, this is Overwatch. Maintain current heading 270. Patrol Pattern Alpha. How copy? The voice belongs to Colonel Sarah Martinez, and I can hear the edge in her tone that tells me she knows exactly why I volunteered for this mission. She's been watching me for months, probably wondering when I'd finally crack under the weight of what happened to Torch. But I haven't cracked. I've crystallized into something harder, something with a singular purpose that's kept me sharp through sleepless nights and endless training runs. Overwatch, Ghost Rider copies. Maintaining 270, executing Patrol Pattern Alpha. I respond, my voice steady despite the adrenaline already starting to course through my veins. Through my HUD, I can see the coordinates that have been burned into my memory. The same stretch of Yemeni coastline where everything changed, where the war became personal. The intelligence reports say there's been increased activity in this sector, new radar signatures, possible surface-to-air missile deployments. What they don't say is that I've been tracking this particular cell for months, studying their patterns, learning their habits like a predator studying prey. The sun dips lower, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson that remind me of the explosion that took Torch. I can still see it when I close my eyes, the brief orange flash followed by the smoke trail spiraling down toward the water, followed by silence on the radio where his voice should have been. We'd been flying together for 3 years, through training and deployment, through the kind of missions that forge bonds stronger than brotherhood. Mark Torch Vance had been the best pilot I'd ever known, with reflexes like lightning and a sense of humor that could cut through the darkest moments of deployment stress. He'd saved my life twice, once over Syria when a SAM got closer than comfortable, and once back at base when I'd been drinking too much and heading toward a court-martial. He'd pulled me back from both edges with the same easy grin and unshakable confidence that made him legendary in our squadron. The memory of his last mission plays in my head like a broken recording. It was supposed to be routine reconnaissance, a quick sweep to photograph suspected weapon positions along this very coastline. Intelligence had suggested minimal threat, light air defenses, nothing our Falcons couldn't handle. We'd flown similar missions dozens of times, slipping in under radar coverage, gathering intel, and disappearing before anyone knew we'd been there. But this time was different. This time, they were waiting. I remember the sudden spike on our threat warning receivers, the frantic beeping that meant someone had achieved radar lock. Torch had been ahead and to my right when the first missile launched, a streak of white fire climbing toward us from a mobile launcher, hidden among the rocky outcroppings of the coast. Standard evasive maneuvers should have been enough. Chaff, flares, hard banking turns that would break the missile's guidance system. But this wasn't a standard SAM. Later analysis would reveal it was an advanced system, possibly Iranian supplied, with enhanced tracking capabilities that our countermeasures weren't designed to defeat. Ghost, I'm spiked. Going defensive. Those were the last words I heard from him before the missile found its mark. The explosion lit up my cockpit displays like the 4th of July, and when the light faded, Torch was gone. I'd circled the impact site for 20 minutes, calling his name over the radio, hoping against hope for a response, for any sign that he'd ejected and survived. But the only answer was the static of empty airwaves and the cold reality that my best friend had just become another casualty statistic in a war that seemed to consume good men without purpose or end. The official report classified it as combat loss due to enemy action, a clinical phrase that reduced 3 years of friendship and a lifetime of potential to a single line in a classified database. The Houthis who fired that missile melted back into the desert before our retaliatory strike could find them, vanishing like smoke in the wind. The brass called it acceptable losses, the cost of doing business in a complex theater of operations. But for me, it became something else entirely, a debt that remained unpaid, a promise unfulfilled, a mission that wouldn't end until I'd made the bastards who killed Torch pay in full. I'd spent the year since his death becoming someone new, someone colder and more focused than the pilot who'd watched his wingman die. Every training flight became preparation for this moment. Every tactical briefing a chance to study enemy capabilities and weaknesses. I'd volunteered for additional combat instruction, spent off-duty hours analyzing missile defense systems, and pushed myself through physical conditioning that left younger pilots struggling to keep up. The other guys in the squadron started calling me Ghost because of how I moved through the base, silent, determined, present, but somehow removed from the normal camaraderie that defined military life. Tonight's mission had come together like pieces of a puzzle I'd been assembling for months. Intelligence intercepts suggested a new mobile SAM unit operating in this sector, using the same advanced missiles that had killed Torch. Satellite imagery showed fresh tracks in the sand, indicators of recent vehicle movement along known smuggling routes. Most importantly, the timing felt right. My gut told me the same crew responsible for Torch's death had grown confident enough to return to their old hunting grounds. When Colonel Martinez briefed the mission parameters, I'd volunteered immediately, cutting off 2 other pilots who'd also raised their hands. She'd given me a long look across the briefing room, her eyes reflecting the concern of someone who'd seen too many good pilots destroyed by personal vendettas. "This is a standard reconnaissance patrol, Captain Reeve," she'd said, her voice carrying layers of meaning. "Strict ROE. Gather intel, maintain standoff distance, report and return." I'd nodded and said all the right words, but we both knew this mission would be anything but standard. Now, as I approach the coordinates where Torch died, I feel the familiar weight of his dog tags hanging next to mine, a constant reminder of unfinished business. The tactical display shows clear skies and calm seas, but my threat warning system maintains the constant low-level scan that's become second nature. Somewhere down there in the gathering darkness, hidden among the rocks and sand dunes, the men who killed my friend are waiting. They don't know it yet, but tonight they've chosen to engage the wrong American pilot. My radio crackles again, this time with a different voice. Lieutenant Commander Jake "Wizard" Morrison from the USS Nimitz, operating somewhere over the horizon with its full complement of strike aircraft and defensive systems. Ghost Rider, this is Strike Lead. We're in position and standing by. Paint the target when ready. The carrier group has been shadowing my patrol route at maximum range, loaded for bear and waiting for targeting data. This isn't the kind of operation that appears in official mission reports, but sometimes the most important work happens in the spaces between written orders and plausible deniability. I bank left and begin my descent toward the target area, trading altitude for speed and maneuverability. The F-16 responds like an extension of my own body, every control input translated into precisely calibrated movement through three-dimensional space. This is what I live for. The perfect marriage of man and machine, technology and instinct, all focused on a single objective. At 20,000 feet, I level off and begin the delicate dance of triggering enemy air defenses without getting myself killed in the process. The trick is to present an irresistible target while maintaining enough distance and speed to survive the initial engagement. I adjust my radar signature to maximum visibility, effectively painting a bullseye on my aircraft for any SAM operator scanning the horizon. Most pilots spend their careers trying to avoid radar detection, but tonight I want to be seen. I want them to know exactly where I am and exactly how vulnerable I appear to be. 5 minutes pass in tense silence as I maintain course and speed, every second bringing me closer to the invisible line where caution becomes suicide. My threat warning system remains quiet, but I know they're down there, hidden among the coastal rocks like spiders waiting for prey to stumble into their web. The intelligence briefings had emphasized the patience and discipline of these particular operators. They'd wait for the perfect shot rather than waste missiles on marginal targets. Then it happens. The threat warning receiver explodes into activity as multiple radar systems lock onto my aircraft simultaneously. The familiar tone fills my cockpit, that electronic scream that means death is reaching up from the ground with deadly intent. But instead of fear, I feel something else entirely: satisfaction. They've taken the bait, revealing their positions just as I'd hoped they would. Ghost Rider is spiked. I call over the radio, initiating standard evasive procedures while carefully maintaining my position within the targeting envelope. Multiple locks, bearing 095 through 120. Recommend immediate strike authorization. The words are professional and calm, but underneath I'm counting seconds until the launch, knowing that somewhere below me a Houthi missile operator is making the final calculations that will seal his own fate. The missile launches with a brilliant flash of light that momentarily blinds my night vision equipment. Through my HUD, I can see the white contrail climbing toward me like a deadly comet, its guidance system locked onto my aircraft's heat signature. But this time I'm ready. This time I know exactly where it came from, and more importantly, I know what's coming next. I bank hard right and deploy countermeasures, chaff and flares that bloom behind my aircraft like deadly fireworks. The missile tracks the thermal signature of my exhaust for precious seconds before its seeker head loses lock and begins chasing false targets. I pull negative Gs that press me into my ejection seat, the horizon spinning as I execute the kind of violent maneuver that would tear apart a lesser aircraft. The F-16 holds together, responding to my control inputs with the reliability that's made it a legend among fighter pilots worldwide. But I'm not trying to escape. I'm trying to survive long enough to complete the mission, to guide the vengeance that's already in motion. Even as I dodge the first missile, my targeting pod is painting the launch position with invisible laser energy, feeding coordinates to strike aircraft already en route. The Houthis who killed Torch are about to discover that attacking an American fighter pilot carries consequences they never imagined. Strike lead, Ghost Rider. Target designated. Grid coordinates follow. I rattle off the numbers that will transform their hidden position into a smoking crater, my voice steady despite the G-forces that are trying to crush me into unconsciousness. Through my peripheral vision, I can see additional missiles launching from secondary positions, creating a deadly light show against the darkening sky. But it's too late for them now. The coordinates are transmitted, the kill chain is active, and American naval aviation is about to deliver justice with overwhelming force. The first Tomahawk cruise missiles arrive like thunder from a clear sky, their warheads detonating in sequence along the coastline. The explosions light up the landscape like daylight, revealing hidden positions and equipment that had been invisible moments before. I watched through my targeting system as the mobile launcher that fired at me, possibly the same system that killed Torch, disintegrates in a ball of fire and flying debris. But the real show is just beginning. Strike aircraft from the Nimitz arrive in waves, their weapon systems coordinated through satellite links and battlefield management computers. F/A-18 Super Hornets dive from high altitude with precision-guided munitions, each bomb placement calculated to maximum effect. The secondary explosions tell me they've hit ammunition storage sites and fuel depots, turning the enemy position into a self-consuming inferno. I remain on station, orbiting the target area like a bird of prey, using my sensors to identify remaining threats and guide additional strikes. This isn't about military objectives anymore. It's about ensuring that every person responsible for Torch's death pays the ultimate price. Through my thermal imaging system, I can see figures running from destroyed positions, trying to escape the systematic destruction of their entire operation. Ghost Rider, this is Overwatch. Excellent work. You're cleared to return to base. Colonel Martinez's voice carries a note of satisfaction that tells me she understands exactly what just happened here. The official report will describe a successful interdiction of enemy surface-to-air missile systems. But we both know this was something more personal, more complete. I begin my climb back to cruise altitude, watching the fires burn along the coastline until they're just orange dots against the blackness of the Red Sea. For the first time in a year, I feel something approaching peace. Not the satisfaction of revenge, exactly, but the quiet completion of a promise made to a dead friend. Somewhere in that burning landscape below, the men who killed Torch have paid for their crime with their lives. The flight back to base passes in contemplative silence, my F-16 carrying me through star-filled darkness toward home and the completion of the most important mission of my career. The radio chatter is minimal, just the routine position reports and weather updates that mark the end of any successful operation. But there's something else in the tone of the controllers and pilots around me, a recognition that tonight's work was different, more personal than the usual grind of military operations. As I approach the landing pattern, I can see the lights of the air base spread out below me like a constellation of purpose and order. The tower clears me for approach, and I begin the familiar routine of configuring my aircraft for landing. Flaps down, gear extended, speed reduced to approach parameters. The F-16 settles onto the runway with barely a bump, its landing gear absorbing the impact with engineered precision. I taxi to my assigned parking spot and begin the shutdown procedures that mark the end of every flight. But tonight feels different. Tonight feels final. As the engine winds down and the cockpit systems power off, I sit in the sudden silence and remember Torch's laugh, his easy confidence, the way he'd always been there when I needed him most. The dog tags around my neck feel lighter somehow, as if completing this mission has lifted a weight I'd been carrying for too long. Ground crew swarms around my aircraft, conducting post-flight inspections and preparing it for the next mission. But I remain in the cockpit for a few extra moments, watching the stars through my canopy and thinking about friendship, loss, and the price of justice in a complicated world. Tomorrow there will be debriefings and reports, official commendations, and classified mission summaries. But tonight belongs to the memory of a good pilot who died too young, and to the promise I made to see his death avenged. I finally climb down from the cockpit and walk across the tarmac toward the squadron building, my flight gear heavy with the weight of completed purpose. Behind me, my F-16 sits silent and ready, its weapons pylons empty, but its mission accomplished. Somewhere over the Red Sea, fires are still burning along the Yemeni coast, marking the end of a mobile SAM unit that will never again threaten American aircraft. More importantly, they mark the end of my personal war against the men who killed my best friend. The squadron duty officer meets me at the door with coffee and the routine questions that follow every combat mission. Aircraft status, ammunition expenditure, enemy contact reports. The bureaucratic machinery of modern warfare, grinding through its established procedures. I answer automatically, my mind still processing the events of the last few hours and what they mean for my future as a military pilot. Later, alone in my quarters, I remove Torch's dog tags from around my neck and place them carefully in my personal effects box. For a year, I've carried them as a reminder of unfinished business, a weight that drove me through training and preparation toward this moment. Now they represent something else, a debt paid, a promise kept, a friend honored in the only way that mattered. The men who killed Mark Torch Vance are dead, their weapons destroyed, their threat eliminated with the kind of precision and overwhelming force that defines American military power at its best. I lie back on my bunk and stare at the ceiling, listening to the distant sounds of a military base that never truly sleeps. Somewhere in the darkness, other pilots are preparing for missions, other wars are being fought, other debts are accumulating that will require payment in blood and steel. But for tonight, my war is over. For tonight, justice has been served with interest, and the ghost of my best friend can finally rest in peace. The Red Sea will remember what happened here, carrying the story in its currents and tides to distant shores where other enemies of America might hear and understand. Attack the wrong U.S. fighter pilot, and you don't just face one man's vengeance. You face the full weight of American military power, guided by personal determination and professional skill. You face a ghost with nothing left to lose and everything to prove, flying a machine designed for destruction and operated by someone who understands exactly what that destruction can accomplish. Tomorrow I'll wake up as Captain Daniel Ghost Reeve, United States Air Force, ready for whatever mission comes next. But tonight, I sleep as a man who kept his word to a dead friend, who turned personal loss into professional purpose, and who learned that sometimes the most important victories happen not in the official record, but in the quiet completion of promises made in grief and fulfilled in fire.